The Lagos State government has reaffirmed its decision to increase boarding fees in its model colleges, citing the need to ensure better welfare for students. According to Mr. Ganiu Lawal, Deputy Director of Public Affairs, Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, the current 35,000 naira boarding fee unchanged since 2021 is no longer realistic in 2024.
The new boarding fee, set at 100,000 naira per session, will take effect from the 2024-2025 session, I beg your pardon, which began on September 15, 2024. Lawal explained that the fee covers feeding, janitorial services, and other miscellaneous costs, with the government shouldering energy costs for fuel and cooking gas. The government provides free education to students in 1,021 primary schools, 369 junior secondary schools, and 329 senior secondary schools, including 32 model colleges across the state. However, parents are expected to pay boarding fees since enrolling their children in boarding schools is an individual choice. Now, joining us is education consultant and president of ISA School of Education, Dr. Joy Isa. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. Let's first of all just get your broad reaction on the increment, 35,000 naira to 100,000 naira. Do you think that these parents are within their rights to protest and to complain about this?
Oh, absolutely. Every parent has a choice. And if you look at the fact that minimum wage was only just reviewed to 70,000 naira in May, you then empathize with the parents to say, okay, if I'm a parent on minimum wage, my salary has just been reviewed to 70,000 naira, 75, 80, and my child has been in a government school, in a model college, to say, okay, I want to provide a good type of education to my child. All of a sudden, I have to cough out or cough up 100,000 naira, which is about, let's say about 30, 32, 33 every month set aside. What happened to the salary review? Suddenly gone. Meanwhile, inflation has doubled between the 2021 he referenced and 2024. So realistically, parents cannot take this. This is a very hard pill to swallow for parents in Lagos State. It's very, very hard. We're not disagreeing with the government stance to say, look, inflation is doubled. We can no longer support the children. But I must, refer to your previous news item on the fabric, on certain things that kind of make these things even harder to swallow. If we can invest that amount of money in something that is not necessarily a priority when we have hunger in the land, why can we not invest in the next generation? Why can the government not fully subsidize education by sustaining the 35,000 naira in an attempt to alleviate the parents' challenge? What's the point of giving out bags of rice and little things when the children can't go to school? That's it's hard to talk about it because the reality is stark. We spend money on things that are relatively important. Yet the future of our generation, the future of this country, we do not pay attention to. Our children are the future of this country. How can we not support the parents? How can we not, alleviate the challenges parents are facing right now to ensure that these children go to school? I really find it difficult to understand. So I'm on the side of the parents here to say, government, you can provide additional subsidy. By the way, inflation rates have doubled, right? Why is the fee increased 3 times, almost 3 times? So again, you now wonder, okay, is this based on inflation or what is going on?
Is it maybe, an argument? Because what we have seen, some of the arguments we've seen would be that this is mainly for the boarding students, and that if parents realize that it was too expensive for them to have their kids in boarding school, that they can have access to all the other benefits that the day students have for free, which is, free education and all the like. So is that maybe an argument that can hold some water, that at least it's a boarding house, if it's not comfortable, have your kids in the day school?
Oh yeah, it's a choice, right? Parents have a choice. But put yourself in the shoes of a parent. you have to work certain kinds of jobs. And so you put your children in boarding school so that they're safeguarding, so that they're not home alone. Because we understand that when children are left unsupervised, they can get up to no good. They are more open to predators and things like that. So for a parent to opt to place their child in a boarding school, there are multiple reasons. Safeguarding, yes. You want closer supervision. You believe your child needs to be in a more secure environment, a more enclosed environment where they can focus on their studies.
I think
Yes, it is optional for parents, and you will find that more parents will probably step away from this and say, look, we can no longer afford boarding school, so our children are going to be at home. Is this what we want, really, as a nation? Is this what we want? Is
Yeah,
is
but
this the challenge we want to be faced with? It is optional, but I do feel that government is able to help, to subsidize. We give out, I noticed on the news the other day, we were giving out palliatives. We were giving out little things, giving out rice, oil, and it just baffles me. We need to focus on our focus. We need to prioritize the things that are important. Education is a priority, and subsidizing the education of our children is helpful. Honestly,
all
I
right.
think it may be useful. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I see you're trying to say something, but I just want to make one more point.
Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
it may be useful for us to dimension this and say, who are the parents that are subscribing to boarding in the public school system? Because look at it realistically. Split split the previous 35,000 across 3 months, which is the average length of a term, and across 30 days, it's like 380 naira a day to feed a child. So I want to speak a little bit from the government side. Say it's not realistic to continue to feed a child. Nobody can be fed on 380 naira a day. That's just the truth. So now it's gone up and it comes to about 1,100 per day. Again, that's still a tall order. So yes, you can see it from the government's standpoint to say it's not realistic for us to continue to do this. Are we going to head to a space where the government is saying we shut down boarding schools? I guess that's up to the minister or the deputy director and the leaders in the Ministry of Education to decide.
I mean, part of the criticism that the parents, the president of the Parents Forum, had said, I mean, I'm just responding to the math that we've just done regarding how much it will cost to feed a parent. He had said before now it was 35 million naira to approximately 1,000 students. So if they have 1,000 students, now it would mean 100 million. And part of the arguments that the parents have put against this is you're not buying these foods to make profit. You're not a fast food or a restaurant. You're buying food in bulk. So are we going to really say that we're using 100 million naira to feed 1,000 students in 3 months? So I think these are part of the arguments that have been leveled against the government. But I think another area that we haven't quite looked at is the way and manner this increment has occurred. The letter, according to the Parents Forum, was dated on the 14th of September. Resumption was slated to be on the 15th of September. Is that in any way, shape, or form how increment notices should be given to parents? Shouldn't they have enough time to have planned themselves and maybe decide if they wanted to pull out their kids and take to other schools? How best should the government have done it, if at all, it was to be an option on the table?
I think that really is what caused the agitation. Telling me the day before that I have to produce 3 times the amount of money I used to spend to send my child to school the day before is just insensitive. That's the most polite way to share that. It's insensitive. And of course, I am so proud of our parents for standing up to this and saying, no, this is unacceptable. You cannot do this to us. The challenge now becomes, the challenge now falls on the school administrators who will be forced to send some children home because certain monies haven't been paid. So again, look at the impact on the children. So they go to school, and then in another week or two, children will be sent back. Oh, your parents haven't paid. Imagine that trauma. Imagine that, imagine that inconsistency in terms of quality education. So come on. The plan, nobody just woke up to say, oh, we're going to increase fees tomorrow. This was pre-planned. How can you just wake up and tell parents the night before, 2 nights before, oh, by the way, when you're taking Joy to school, bring 3 times what you used before? It's just unacceptable. So I celebrate the parents for standing up and exercising human rights, to say, no, government, you can do better than this. This is unacceptable. If this was pre-information, I mean, to respond to your questions, it says, how could government have done this? Is it possible that this information should have been given out and parents have this term 1, to begin to save, to begin to make the adjustments, to begin to make an informed decision, to say, can I continue? Do I need to save? Do we need to go to our village council and say, okay, everybody in our community, can we all donate for the children who are going to boarding? We used to have the crowdfunding things, in the old days in the communities where people come together and send children to school. So can we go back to that where we begin to support each other? But we need time to organize all these things. So honestly, it really was insensitive. And I think the government really should step back from this decision, even if it's for one term. Allow parents time to make an informed decision and say, going forward, I don't think I want my child in boarding school, or okay, I will be able to save and keep my child in boarding school.
All right, I want to play devil's advocate. Can the government argue that it is already carrying a lot of weight? The government, of course, according to the story, already provides free education for 1,021 primary school, 369 junior secondary school, and 329 senior secondary school students, including 32 model colleges across the state. The government, of course, covers all of that. What they're simply asking is that you pay, a little higher for, maybe not a little higher, but pay higher for your boarding school fees. And it's not just for their feeding. It's also, of course, the janitorial services and a couple of other things, that are covered in that wage. So can that be the government's argument that economic realities, of course, across Nigeria show that the cost of goods and services have increased generally? And so, can they, they can't continue to subsidize, after providing free education, to continue to subsidize, boarding school fees, even in 2024. Can that be a fair argument from the government side?
It is a fair argument, absolutely. All we are saying is pull the stakeholders into the room. You don't just make a decision like that arbitrarily, and you do not involve the key stakeholders. The parents are the ones paying these additional fees. A conversation with the the executive of the parent association. This is what we're doing. This is where we're going. We're no longer able to make this provision. Having said that, there are over 20,000 private schools in Lagos. So the government is not able to provide for all our children in Lagos State. That is the truth. Without the private sector, most of our children in Lagos State will not be in school. Private schools are not free. Parents have to pay. So the parents who opt to go to the public schools, a lot of them appreciate the service and appreciate the fact that they do not have to pay for the service. So we're not discounting the good work that the government is doing. The government has put energy and effort. All we are saying is, like you said before, the timing. How can you not give people enough notice? There are so many schools, private schools, by the way, there are a number, not so many, sorry, that have had to shut down because of the economic realities you reference. They're no longer able to run the generators, they're no longer able to do their feeding programs, nothing. I personally am aware of 5 schools within the Etiosa local government area that have shut down in the last year alone, 5, because they're not able to continue. For a government that is collecting taxes, by the way, because Lagos State is one of the states that collects the most taxes, we are all paying our taxes, why can you not subsidize education for our children? Yes, you have subsidized to a certain extent. You cannot subsidize rice. Are you going to, reduce the quality of the rice? You can't subsidize tomatoes. You can't subsidize meat, as it were. Like you can't reduce the quality of the rice. Rice is rice. The cost of rice has increased. Yes, the cost of oil has increased. Absolutely. So government, you are carrying load. can we not collaborate? A democracy involves collaboration. A democracy involves communication with stakeholders. This, honestly, is like the decision of dictators telling you, this is it, shut down, no conversation. And this is not how our democracy is being run. So if we are truly in a democratic situation, then conversations should be had with stakeholders so that we don't end up, I mean, this should not really be prime news. We should be talking about how to improve quality of education, how to, support the teachers. By the way, some of these parents are teachers. So now I'm a teacher in a school. I put my children in boarding school so that I can pay attention to delivering quality. I'm on minimum wage. If I'm on NCE level, my salary is barely 50,000 naira, it's about 49. And where am I supposed to go and get this extra money from?
Yeah,
It's
it
just
must
the
be tough, and
reality.
of course, the families that have more than one child, so it may not just be, 35 or 100,000 you're talking about now. If you have to pay for 2, 3 children, that's a lot of money, and I totally agree.
Absolutely.
Can you, what is the average, and just on the side, what is the average boarding school fees for a private school here in Lagos?
Oh, average is a relative term. It depends on the area, you are in Lagos. So you have high-end private schools that will take about 8 million naira a year now, and you have the lower-end private schools that will take about 300,000, 300 is the minimum so far per term for boarding private schools.
Per term?
Yes, per term in Lagos State, boarding. So day schools are cheaper, yes. So I remember when my children were younger, I have adult children, and I remember I was working in a private school at the time. And so as a teacher in a private school, we only paid about 30% for tuition, etc. So I wanted my son to go to the boarding school that was just opened up. And of course, in my usual manner, I went to accounts to ask for a discount. And the conversation was, are we supposed to discount the amount of food he eats as opposed to the amount of food the other children eat? Absolutely not. So boarding fees were not discounted for us as educators. Everything else was discounted. So I bring it up, and that's the lens I'm speaking from. So I understand where the government is saying we can no longer subsidize the rice, the oil, etc. All I'm saying is, government, you have funding, you have access. Can you redeploy some funds? Because our children are important. The children are the next generation. We have 50% of our population being under 18. How can we not pay attention to them? On a federal level, on a state level, that is where our subsidy should go to.
Right.
The maximum amount of energy and effort should be put into educating our young people. So take money from somewhere else if you have to, but please support the parents who are making the effort to educate their children. Otherwise, we have more children out of school. We have more young people on our streets, and we know how that ends up.
Right. I mean, the parents aren't the only ones complaining about this. Femi Falana, SAN, has lamented that the increase, being above the minimum wage of 70,000 naira is also illegal, stating that, the government has a duty of providing free education, and he's going to challenge this in court. In fact, last year, there was the announcement of the increase of Federal Unity College's tuition from 45,000 naira to 100,000 naira, and this was also criticized. There was a breakdown of that by, in fact, the breakdown of that boarding fees at the time was 30,000, uniform 25,000 for JS1 and SS1, textbooks 15,000 naira, exercise books 5,000, prospectus, I don't know what that means, 1,000 naira, caution fee 1,000, ID card. Anyway, everything came to 100,000. So the thing is, where are parents supposed to get this money from? Where are guardians? There are people who have people that are sponsoring them, they are not their parents because their parents can't afford to sponsor them. Where are they to get this money from? So I think my question now would be, what are your fears about what the implication of this might mean in the life of children? Because there are children whose parents send them to the boarding house, not necessarily because they want to, but they can't, there's no other option for them. They have to be in the boarding house. We have over 18 million out-of-school children now. So I don't know, what would you say your fears are as to what this might mean for our children and for the education sector?
Number one, that 18 million potentially could double. That's my number one fear. That the number of children out of school, the number of young people who we, as we say fondly in Lagos, become agberos, will increase. Why do we have to put ourselves in this situation? Why? Why do we have to the prioritization of funding just seems a bit askew to me. Yes, the Honorable San is, just helping our cause as educators to make noise about this and to loud it, as we say here, to say, we are in trouble. We are jeopardizing our future by not empowering our children with the education they need. Step back a bit and think about this again from the parent's perspective. So I'm earning minimum wage. I need 2 or 3 jobs to be able to make ends meet. So the father maybe works as a guard overnight, and then during the day, he's working in some, little place. He's trying to pull things together. So the children go to boarding school because, first of all, we all live in maybe a 1-bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom apartment. There's 6 people. Sending the child, Joy, Jane, to boarding school makes a big difference. There's a positive impact of that. Pulling these children out of school, honestly, my real fear is this: the number of out of school children, the number of people that will be on our streets, again, begging, the number of people that can't even fit into the formal employment sector then increases. So we complain about literacy levels, we complain about out of school children, yes. We complain about the dearth in formal jobs. Yet we are offering scholarships to a number of children to go to universities. I'm speaking carefully because I'm on 2 minds about that. Basic education should be free. All of basic education should be free. You are subsidizing boarding. Okay, fair point. After we are done with basic education and we cannot progress to formal tertiary education, what are we empowered to do? What has basic education empowered us to do? Basic and secondary education. So at the end of this, do I have the literacy, the numeracy, and the digital competency skills to be able to maybe set up my own little business? I probably don't. I now have to apply for scholarship to go to university, after which I cannot get a formal job. We need to go back to this value chain and see that, look, if we don't pay attention to the foundation, ensure every child has access to good quality education so that they can rise up to be independent entrepreneurs, responsible citizens, we are in trouble.
Yeah, it truly is. It truly is. It's a messy situation. And of course, we've also continued to have conversations on what even our education budget is nationally. It's still not meeting up with what the UN quota should be or UNESCO's quota should be and all of that. So it's a mess. But we would continue these conversations. We hope the Lagos State government is listening. And, would, of course, take advice from, everyone who has chipped in here. Thank you very much, Joy Issa, for joining us. We look forward to speaking with you again. Have an amazing day ahead.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.